Welcome everybody. Thanks for joining us on our final Sunset series of 2023. Where did that year go? My goodness. Lovely to see you all. I think we're not going to do too much chatting tonight. The only thing I just wanted to mention is this is obviously part of the Sunset series, the last one of the year. We have got a programme booked ready for early next year. And so I hope you'll join us for our first one in January, which is on the 30th with Tessa Bunny, and it's all about fishing tales. And I know that that's something that we've done quite a lot about in the past, so I'm sure some of you will be super interested in that. So we look forward to seeing you then. And the final thing is, just as a quick reminder, just running up to the final Christmas push, we are selling some merchandise on our website. If someone can post it in the chat, the link to our shop. We've got some lovely things, some mugs and bags, for you to buy for those last minute gifts. If you can get them in before the weekend, that would be amazing, so that we can get them posted out to you in time for Christmas to catch those last minute Christmas posting dates from the post office. So I'm going to shut up now, and I'm going to hand over to Michelle, who's going to walk us hopefully through this wonderful evening of entertainment, we hope, but also celebration of everything that the charity has achieved in 2023. So massive team effort. Over to you, Michelle.
Hi everybody, good evening. So nice to see you all. Lots of friendly faces staring back at me, so nice to see you. It's been a really busy year for all the team at Morecambe Bay Partnership, and it was there's so many highlights from this year that we could have shared, but we were reflecting on the year and we realised that we've been fortunate this year to have, through the kind generosity of our funders, we've had the opportunity to create a number of multimedia resources, I guess, so films and audio pieces and perhaps things that we don't always get the chance to do, really, and just because of the types of projects we've been running. And we thought it would be really wonderful to share those with some of you and give some of them their online premieres as well. And so we're going to sort of talk through some of those highlights. It could have been many more, but we've focused on the ones where there were some nice films to share, if they were. And each member of the team who's been involved with a particular project is going to introduce their little section, if you like. And through these films, we've been able to kind of share the projects, showcase the work of the charity, share stories from around the Bay, and really use them hopefully as a tool to engage local people, new audiences in some of the work that we do, the services that we offer, and just some of the great community projects that we've been involved with this year. So I hope you will enjoy watching. And the first one, what we're going to do, this is just a little menu of what we're hoping to do tonight. So we're going to show you a little introductory film about Morecambe Bay Partnership. And then we look back over the course of the calendar year, really. So way back in January, at the start of the year, we were busy with schools and heritage and archaeology. So we're going to share some of that work. Then it was all about cycling and walking, launching some of our programmes around that in the spring, summer. Big time for our community programmes and our fantastic arts project we were involved with called Beach of Dreams. So there's a great documentary that we wanted to share. And then the Back on Our Map Nature project, which is coming to an end, final few months this autumn and winter. So it's nice to share the documentary that was made for that project as well. So I hope you'll sit back and enjoy watching some of these. And so the first one we wanted to share is just a little short video about Morecambe Bay Partnership, and it is on our website if you do want to see it again. We're so grateful for the support that everyone shares and shows towards us. And I know there's quite a lot of you on the call who've given your time, volunteered, joined in an event, sent a donation, volunteered as a photographic model for some of our work. There's so many ways people have been involved. And thanks to the Helping Trust, who are helping with the development work of our organisation, we've been able to create this little video just to try and help tell everybody who we are and what we do and how all of that support has an impact on Morecambe Bay and the people and places here. So I just wanted to share it with you all, really, and say thank you for everyone who's been on the journey with us, and hopefully carry on supporting us into the future. So you hopefully know about the work Morecambe Bay Partnership does because you're all here tonight, but just in case you don't, and this is a nice little summary, so hopefully this is all going to work. If it's not working, Sarah, you're going to have to give me the nod, okay?
We are Morecambe Bay Partnership. a charity dedicated to the people, nature and heritage of Morecambe Bay. We raise funds to help protect and celebrate this amazing place and create a better future together. With over 300 square kilometres of extraordinary coastline, shining sands and dramatic headlands, Morecambe Bay is truly breathtaking. The largest intertidal area in the UK, the bay is brilliant for biodiversity and is internationally important for birds. But Morecambe Bay's extraordinary environment is under threat from human disturbance, climate change, pollution and unsustainable development. Coastal erosion, human activity, lack of investment and time means the bay's unique heritage is at risk. Together, with your help, we can combat these threats, protecting wildlife, cleaning up the bay and fighting climate change. With our amazing volunteers, we are protecting the bay's treasures and history so they last for many generations to come. We're creating unique projects that offer new skills and experiences so everyone has the opportunity to benefit from this magical place. We're helping everyone get active in the wonderful landscape of the bay. With your support, we can create even more access for all. We champion Morecambe Bay. Through inspiring events, we engage with more people to share the bay's treasures and grow their love for this incredible place. From Barrow to Fleetwood, Morecambe Bay is outstanding. Together we can keep it that way. Let's continue to connect, conserve and celebrate all that is brilliant about the bay. If you love Morecambe Bay as much as we do, come with us and make a difference. Your gift of time and money will make Morecambe Bay a place where people, nature and heritage thrive.
Okay, so that's the overview, which always makes me very happy when I watch it because I see lots of familiar faces and see some of the great work that the charity has done over the last few years. So let's go on to some of the detail of our projects from this year. So I'm going to hand over to our Archaeology and Heritage Officer, Claire, who's on the call, and she's going to tell you a little bit about the Heritage Project that started off the year.
Thanks, Michelle. So at the beginning of the year, I was in the final stages of running our Defending the Docks project, which was focused on the military heritage of Barrow and Walney from the Second World War. And we had a team of excellent volunteers go out and survey all of the military remains that are still around the coast of Barrow and Walney. And these are so important. They're it's the most complete set of Second World War buildings outside of the south coast, but a lot of them are falling away into the sea. They're being graffitied and they're having rubbish thrown into them. So we wanted to make sure that these sites were recorded, make sure we knew where they were, and try and encourage people to look after them a bit more. As part of that, we did some photographic surveys, we filled in some condition monitoring forms, and we looked in the archives. But what we also did is went out and spoke to some of the people who grew up in Barrow during the Second World War. So we've just picked out a few examples of people who really kindly agreed to speak to us, and we've put together some short clips of their interviews. The fuller interviews are all available on Recording Morecambe Bay, but these are just some things to whet your appetite.
Should just say the very first recording is a little bit quiet because it had to be recorded over the phone. So it's slightly, you might just need to turn your volume up slightly for the first little bit.
where I was born, in the town centre, Oldham Street, that was bombed, and it's now a car park, I believe. Yeah, I remember the sirens going, and I lost all my hair through, I got alopecia and lost all my hair through the stress and the bombing. And we were playing one night, my friend and I, on some waste ground by Greengate Street, where the railway was. Saw two men come and put something in the bushes. So being very inquisitive, we went along to have a look, to see what they'd put in there. And it was shiny things wrapped in a cloth. So I said, oh, I'm going to have one of those. And I took it home and I showed my dad. And the next morning, I never got up till 8 o'clock. But at 7:30, my mum come on, you've got to get up, you've got to get up. Went downstairs, had 2 mini suits, the trilby hats on the table, and the bullet. It's a bullet. Where did you find it? What time did you find it? Who put it there? Whereabouts was it? Inundated with all these questions, I was terrified. What have I done? What have I done?
The Prime Minister gave an announcement on a Sunday morning, and I can remember it as clear as anything. And I'd only be, what then, 1939, I'd only be 5. And but my dad said, you must come in and listen to this, you know, because the Prime Minister was going to announce, everybody knew he was going to announce that we'd gone to war with Germany. He'd sort of made a declaration that if they didn't sort of cease their hostilities by 9 o'clock, we would declare war on them at 11 o'clock, which he more or less did over the radio. And, you know, I can remember that as clear as anything. It was a Sunday morning, nice and sunny, and we'd been playing out in the back street, and, you know, Mum and Dad just sort of called us in, and we had to listen to this programme. And, you know, I can't remember much of the content of it, but, you know, we got a sense of the gravity of what was going on, you know. In actual fact, we lived in Bristol Street, which is about a quarter of a mile from here, and Bristol Street is on the sort of crest of a hill, and we could look over the tops of all the roofs of all the rest of the houses. And, you know, as kids, which would by then be sort of 6, 7 years of age, we looked out of our bedroom window looking down to a glowing sky down at Liverpool, where the whole sky was just lit up with the fires that were burning from the continuous blitz. And, you know, so we were aware of what was happening. Access to the airfield was very restricted during the actual war years. But at the end of the war, when there was still training airmen, because there was still the war with Japan for another few months after Germany had surrendered, and so, but we were able to, as kids, I mean, by then the same with kids, we were, well, getting on for 14 years of age, very adventurous, and we used to venture up the airfield and you know, roam around these spots. So sometimes there was still training, you know, be firing in this sort of dugout, and I think that's still there, you know, not necessarily the whole structure, but you know, the sort of the mound of earth that surrounded it to protect it. And there were lots of places where they would just have static gun training, and so we would go to the sandhills and collect bullets, you know, the spent bullets, and so that was quite a week, you know, Saturday afternoon's occupation, just going and collecting bullets.
When the landmine dropped on Hawker Street, across the way from where we were, the vibration caused the lights to go out and the inner walls to collapse. So all the bricks were blocking the steps up from the cellar. and we would plunge into darkness. And at that time, that particular night, there was just my mum and dad and Hilda and I, and Mr. and Mrs. Smith and Ted. So we sat in a ring, sort of holding hands, because it was frightening, very, very noisy. All these bombs dropping and aircraft and what have you. And of course the air was full of dust, coal dust. We had one bottle of lime juice it appeared from somewhere, because we were in total darkness, and we were just passing this bottle round, and my mum next to me would pass it and say, "Don't drink it, Margaret, just wet your lips. We don't know how long we're going to be stuck down here." When the landmine fell on Holker Street, that was just across the road from where we were. That's what caused our house to be damaged and for us to be trapped in the underground cellar in darkness. And I mean, that was frightening. My sister, she was 8 years older than me, but she was crying and wailing, and I was listening to her.
So yeah, there's some absolutely fascinating stories. So we interviewed, I think, 7 people overall, and most of them not only lived in Barrow or on Walney Island, most of their parents also worked for Vickers Shipyard, so they would have been intimately involved in kind of a lot of the preparations for war at the time. So as well as collecting all this information, we didn't want this to just sit in our archives and not be used by anybody. We wanted to try and inspire the next generation. So I went into 5 schools with several of my excellent colleagues, and we taught the children some kind of building survey skills, some of the same skills we're teaching to the adult volunteers, looked at some of the documents that they'd dug out of the archives, but we also produced we didn't, our wonderful partners at LA12 produced this wonderful virtual reality experience to show the children what it really would have been like back on Walney in May 1941, because we want these children to grow up to care about the history of their place and to try and care for the monuments that still remain. So this is just a recording of the virtual reality experience. It's not quite as immersive on a computer screen as it is in a virtual reality headset, but we hope that you'll enjoy it anyway.
Welcome to Defending the Docks. During World War II, the shipyard at Barrow built and launched ships and submarines crucial to the British war effort. This resulted in Barrow, the shipyard and docks becoming a target for nighttime bombing raids. To defend against attacks from the air and from the sea, buildings and military installations were set up across Walney and Barrow Island. Today, the remains of concrete structures that we see along the coastline once housed and operated. Barrage balloons, anti-aircraft guns, searchlights and other weapons. Let us go back in time to May 1941 to explore how the people of Barrow went about defending the docks. We will visit the heavy artillery battery and a searchlight installation at the south of Walney Island, and we will end our journey in the town following an overnight bombing raid.
Hey, I've been told to expect some visitors to the searchlight this evening. Ah, there they are. Come on, let's show you around, but please, don't touch. Aye, this is our light. This one here has 2 billion candle power. It does get very hot and noisy in here though when it's on. Light on.
Despite the efforts to defend itself, Barrow and its people suffered during the Blitz. As much as a quarter of the housing was damaged or destroyed, and many people were killed or injured. Through these difficult times, Barrow's docks, shipyard and the people of the town made a significant contribution to the war effort. Please press any button on your controller to start.
So there we have it, a little snapshot into some of the work we've been doing with schools and community volunteers in Barrow to share that precious heritage in archaeology, and hopefully we can continue to use that with more schools around Morecambe Bay into the future. So just a change of pace now, and I'm hoping this is going to work. We had trouble with this video when we were just setting up, but we'll give it a whirl. We're moving over to focus on some of our work around promoting cycling and walking, which has been a big part of our programmes this year. And I'm going to hand over to my colleague Lauren to say hello and explain a little bit about Ways Around the Bay.
Hi everyone, I'm Lauren and I'm the Engagement Officer for Ways Around the Bay. So Ways Around the Bay has had a number of different projects over the last few years. They've all had a running theme throughout, which is to establish Morecambe Bay area as an attractive place for cycling and walking. So we've used a number of different ways to develop this, and one of them is to create Morecambe Bay to develop an active and sustainable travel hubs around the bay. One of these ways is the journey planner, which we've got on our Ways Around the Bay website now, and we'll send a link to that. We've also been working on improving the inclusive access to around Morecambe Bay. So we've got some tramper hires available from Grange and also at Rowdsea, and then we're about to open the Grange hub next year soon. So there will be e-bike hire there and mobility scooter hire, which is really, really exciting. And the films that we may hopefully see, if not, they are on our website. So we've got some brand films, which in our opinion think that it makes it really exciting and a really cool place to walk and cycle around Morecambe Bay. So hopefully you get to see that. But also within these films, we've added some podcasts and stories from people who live in the bay. And in particular, some stories that are really heartwarming and inspiring. There's a gentleman called David who uses a recumbent bike to get around Grange and the Morecambe Bay area. So it's a wonderful story that David talks about, and also other people just exploring kind of how they connect to the Bay area and how they find joy around the bay through walking and cycling. Really hope it works, but if not, we can direct you to the website and where the podcasts are. And Nigel Thompson helped record those podcasts. So yeah, let's see how if it works, Michelle, and enjoy if it does.
Fingers crossed. And yeah, just everybody like gesture or something if it's not watchable, but we'll try our best for you. Okay, here we go.
So for me, Morecambe Bay is incredibly special. I was born and bred over there in Barrow, and now as the Member of Parliament for Lancaster and Fleetwood, I take in the other part of the bay, and here we are in Knott End, which for me is a really special place. Whatever's going on in your life, and no matter how stressed you feel, if you come to Morecambe Bay, you cannot look out at those sands and feel anxious and stressed. For me, this is my place where I'm calm and I'm collected. This is my place where, it's my happy place, if you will. It's where I come to find myself, and you know, all the stresses of the day job and parenting and all the rest of it can just be left aside, and you can just feel really grounded. So you know, whether or not it's you looking at the birds and the sands, or whether or not it's you know, taking in the sort of more active parts around the bay and playing in the playground with small people, like this is a place where you can really
lighting changes whatever you're looking at, whether it be the mountains, whether it be the buildings, whether it be looking across the sea to the Irish Sea towards the Isle of Man. It's never the same. It always brings a different emotion. It always invokes a different feeling, and if you're ever feeling a little bit down or a little bit melancholy, come and sit at the front of Morecambe Bay and just look across the sea there to the lakelands, and look across to the Isle of Man, and it just gives you that sense of calm.
The most I get out of this is meeting people, because otherwise I would be stuck in the house, and the only people I'd see would be nurses who come twice a week and my cleaner. And here you get, on the recumbent especially, people use it as a starting point of a conversation, because they may never have seen one or they're interested in it. You know, and then you just get talking. And there are people on the prom of all ages, from very small children who, you know, you see them a lot before they go to school, to a lot of people who are retired, you know, who just keep going. And I think they come out and on the prom to meet people as well. You know, as well, and it's a combination, you know, exercise and conversation.
Morecambe Bay. It's a place like no other. It's an awe-inspiring coastal landscape where a walkout can re-energise and reinvigorate you. It's a place shaped by the tide and sea, a heady mix of diverse wildlife, nature, cultural and industrial heritage. See trees sculpted by the wind, shifting sandbanks, expansive mudflats as far as the eye can see. There's rugged limestone cliffs and headlands, and railway viaducts that look like train sets from high viewpoints. With tides that gallop faster than horses, the bay reminds us of the power of nature and all the elements that shape us, giving a massive boost to our well-being. There is no better way to get close to all of this than on foot. And if you or your companions have limited mobility, you can still enjoy getting outdoors by hiring a tramper free of charge at one of our hire points. The network of tramper hire points and routes is expanding, so you can have a wide choice of places to explore off the beaten track with ease. Delve into the Ways Around the Bay website and create your own itinerary, from short ambles to multi-day hikes and tramper-friendly routes, tea shop and pub walks or nature trails. You can plan and enjoy the bay your way. Go to waysaroundthebay.org.uk.
Well, I mean, look at it. Here we are sat on this bench and we're looking out to sea. It's a beautiful, beautiful blue sky day. And actually the tide's gone out a little bit since we've been here. So every day you come here, you get a different view. You've got sometimes the tide's in, sometimes all you can see is sand. And then you can cycle off in that direction and follow it round for nearly 10 miles. And then you can come back inland looking at the mountains. So you've got this fantastic diversity of landscapes and habitats from the ocean literally to the mountains. And we can hear Chiff Chaff singing in the background, who's just arrived back from Africa, and we've got all these wading birds right in front of us. So amazing diversity of wildlife and habitats, beautiful scenery, relatively quiet roads. There's a whole network of little quiet lanes in there, some great cafes and a really friendly cycling culture.
Morecambe Bay is a great destination for people on bikes, whatever level of riding ability. There's miles of awe-inspiring sea, sand and mountain views as you pedal along ample flat stretches of off-road cycleways, quiet lanes, along old railway lines, curious waterways and coastal promenades. There's even a chance to rest by hopping on the odd ferry or two. Those who want more of a challenge can crank out the miles into the bay's hinterland to discover quiet hilly lanes, woodland tracks and panoramic viewpoints. The bay is also home to the Bay Cycleway, a national cycle network route hugging the coastline from Sandy Gap on Walney Island to Glasson Dock south of Lancaster. It's a perfect introduction for people new to cycle touring. You can split the 81 miles into a 2, 3 or 4 day route. You can use a journey planner on the Ways Around the Bay website to find accommodation and to check those all-important places for great coffee and cake. There are lots of rewarding shorter routes which spur off from train stations, picturesque villages and bustling towns, and that means you can easily leave the car at home. The bay offers up so many ways to enjoy exciting walking, cycling or tramper itineraries that might even include unique cultural events, creative art exhibitions and performances. And for those of you who'd like a little boost, you can even hire an e-bike from one of the hire points around the bay. E-bikes are perfect for gently growing your cycling confidence and fitness and can help you go for longer days out. Find the route that suits you and your riding companions best. Go to waysaroundthebay.org.uk.
Okay, so hopefully that's given you a little bit of inspiration. And if you didn't get that website, they'll put it in the chat for you, but I'm sure you heard it a few times there, waysaroundthebay.org.uk. Yeah, it's a fantastic new resource, which we're all really excited about. Linked to that is the next film that we're wanting to share. You're probably all aware, if you get our newsletters and things, of the Bay Lines Beach of Dreams project, which is a wonderful participatory community arts project that really champions coastal communities and walking, but also took in story gathering and celebrating different parts of the Morecambe Bay coastline. And it's all part of a national project called Beach of Dreams from the artist Ali Pretty and the arts organisation Connecticut. And over the summer, we spent a lot of time walking around the bay and exploring all its different corners and the stories of people who live there. And I know there's quite a few people on the call tonight who took part, so thank you so much for all your contributions. And I'm going to let the film tell the story more, but just to say it was made by Rosa Productions, and the narrator is our good friend Nigel Thompson, so you might recognise the voice, and fingers crossed this one works okay as well.
This is Morecambe Bay, an area stretching from Fleetwood in the south to Barrow and Walney Island in the north, with salt marsh along the shore and tides which sweep in and out and surge up the estuaries. In early summer 2023, we explored 120 miles right around the bay, with artists, photographers, filmmakers and local people walking and creatively mapping every mile of the coast. And the project culminated over August Bank Holiday weekend with 4 installation events, the first at Walney, overlooking the Irish Sea. then Grange and Arnside on the Leven and Kent estuaries, and finally on the very busy promenade and beach at Morecambe. Baylines is part of a national project, Beach of Dreams, led by the arts organisation Kinetica and commissioned by the Morecambe Bay Partnership. The idea for Beach of Dreams comes from Ali Pretty, the artistic director whose art form includes long-distance walking and creating visual stories on silk with communities.
We were looking for creative ways to engage people really around cycling and walking around Morecambe Bay. So it's all part of a project we're running called Ways Around the Bay, which is to celebrate the amazing landscape and environment of Morecambe Bay and get it better known, but in a sustainable and active way. So getting people out of their cars and walking and cycling. And then we heard about Beach of Dreams. And it seemed to bring together so many different elements of our work. So it encouraged walking and gentle exploration of the coastline, but it also was about the environment and nature and heritage, and these are all themes within the work that we do. And it was a great opportunity to really showcase Morecambe Bay and engage the communities who live here to really feel proud of the place. The coastline here is really spectacular. It's highly protected for wildlife, so it's really important for nature. It's one of the most important places in the UK for bird life, and the wading birds particularly. It's a major pit stop for migrating birds, and great stories and a long heritage from prehistory right through to the more modern fishing heritage that's been here, and it's really something we should all be proud of.
The ebbing tide leaves miles and miles of sands exposed, which seems to almost link the towns and villages around the bay.
I find it just a fascinating area. We're very close to the Lake District where we stood right now, and a lot of people think of the hills and the mountains, but actually those hills and mountains have a coastline which is just stunningly beautiful. It's very unique. When the tide is out, you have just this huge expanse of sand. That means that we've got unique nature as well that goes alongside that. That it is a half-moon bay, and you can look from one side to the other all the time. So it's a very special place from a nature point of view, but to look at as well.
The current crossing is from Arnside along to Silverdale and then directly across the sands. So where I live, you can see people making the crossing every weekend in the summer when the tides are right, and it's an amazing sight.
I'm a fisherman, born and bred fisherman. I'm a fisherman of the bay. That's what my job is. That's how I earn my money. So I'm a fisherman. I'm out there nearly every day, either catching shrimps or setting nets or cockling and mussling, yeah. The King's Guide was originally set up by Henry VIII back in 1548. There was originally 4 guides to the bay, one at S-Bank, one at Kent's Bank, one at Fluteborough and one at Ulverston. And our job is to guide people across the bay at any time. Right then, are we ready?
Hang on, good luck guys.
When we're on a walk, we've got a lot of responsibility, so we've got to look after people. But when I'm on my own, it's great. In the middle of the night, out there, 8 miles on your own, it's perfect. Looking up at the stars.
It's a really unusual landscape. The way that it is a bay, and the community kind of collects around the bay and it is connected by it, because even though the mileage and the distance between the communities is quite a lot, there's a sense of all being connected by the bay, and also because it's so dramatic and it's dangerous as well, it is very much part of people's lives, and it gives this place and this space an identity. Beach of Dreams is a national project exploring the coastline of the entire UK and Ireland, and it started in Lowestoft in 2021, and we did 500 miles from Lowestoft to Tilbury, and the aim is to gather stories of each mile of the coastline, what it is, what its heritage is, and then to look out to the horizon and imagine how we can look after it for the future.
And Baylines throws the focus on the 120 miles around Morecambe Bay.
We started with some gathering walks, so there was a lot of community engagement, getting people to know about the project, to invite them to come and walk in their sort of favourite landscapes. And so in June we walked for 6 days, covering the 120 miles, talking to people about their stories and then inviting them to go away and think about it, take photographs, draw and write and submit their content to us. And then the part that I was involved in particularly was to translate those photographs into drawings for these silk pennants.
I love hearing other people talk.
We took the submissions, we did some drawings, and then we came back here and we used the process of batik to batik those drawings like block prints onto the hand-painted silk. And then we used natural dyes. So I worked with my colleague Leslie Robinson, who explored the different colours of the bay. We decided to use willow and then bracken and then Dyer's greenweed, which is very specific to here and gives you this amazing bright yellow which we see on the tops of the flags.
I set off with the gathering walks in a beautiful week in early June, talking to the people we met around the bay and gathering photos and stories as we went.
We had these beautiful views, and as we walked around the bay we could look back to the previous places we'd walked and look ahead to what we were going to be visiting the next day or the day after, so it was a really good experience.
For the June walks, we split Morecambe Bay into 6 distinct areas.
We're stood at the site of the old Rossall landmark, which is probably the true southern point of Morecambe Bay. And the stumps behind us are the only visible remains of this quite historic structure that was in place for several hundred years.
And on day 1, Ali and the team of walkers headed east, 20-odd miles from Fleetwood in the direction of Lancaster.
I chose mile 1, which is in Fleetwood, and I went on the beginning of the walk, and then I went back later in the day with my camera and I took some new pictures of the landscape. I've been working as a documentary photographer for 30 years. I'm interested in stories and the landscape and people that work on the landscape. When I look at a landscape, I want to know who lives there, what they do, why they do it, how they do it, and it's all those kind of combination of things that go into my work.
Crossing the River Wyre, we walked to Pilling and met with marine pilot Andy Bradbury.
I'm a harbour pilot at Heysham and Glaston Dock. I went to primary school at Preesall, and my school actually backed up to the sea wall. And I remember them finishing off this sea wall, these sea defences. The trees have grown up quite a lot since then. Looking at the bay, the marsh has grown out a lot more. Over the years it seems to be more marshland really. The sea, it's very dynamic and it's always changing. I grew up on the Wyre, playing about on the River Wyre, watching the ships coming in and out. There's probably quite a bit more shipping in those days coming into Heysham and Glaston Dock.
Day 2 of the gathering walks on a blazing Sunday morning in June. Ali was joined by walkers to explore Sunderland Point and the coast up to Morecambe. We followed the coast north from Sunderland Point to Heysham, and at Morecambe we joined up with the Bay Beat Band from More Music to accompany us along the promenade. On day 3 of the walks, we started off at Hess Bank.
And the Our Future Coast project is all about restoring and working with the natural environment to provide a better coastal defence. And so right now we're standing at a place called Red Bank Farm, or this is Red Bank Marsh, not far from sort of Hess Bank. And we are currently overlooking a really quite nice example of salt marsh. And salt marsh is a really interesting environment. Now, if you look at it from the position we're at now, it looks sort of like a field. You think grassy, it's vegetated. You wouldn't necessarily think coastal. But in actual fact, salt marshes are fantastic habitats. They're really good ecosystems. We see a lot of birds landing, feeding, and actually nesting on the site. But they also provide a lot of benefits for us as humans as well. So they're a really good buffer, if you like, for waves and tidal forces. They help to absorb a lot of that wave energy and help to protect our coastal communities. And that's why there's that mixture of both human benefits and the ecological benefits that make them so vital to our sort of northwest coastlines, and why we're so interested in our future coast, in restoring and helping to protect them and manage them for the future.
From Hessbank, the path took us past Warton Crag and the RSPB reserve at Leighton Moss, and along the coast to Silverdale.
This is Jenny Brown's Point. It's a beauty spot. It's a lovely, lovely place, and it's got quite a few stories around it that I've researched over the years. Just a couple of things I'll do first. You walked alongside a little river that's called Quicksand Pool, named because it's dangerous and it separates us from Walton Marsh, and it flows out to the sea here. Everyone always asks who was Jenny Brown, so I'll just say a couple of words on Jenny Brown. Jenny Brown was born just the other side of these trees in Dyke House Farm. She was born as Jenette Warline in the early 17th century. She had a daughter who she named Jenny as well, so there are two Jenny Browns here. She married a Brown. We have no idea why her name got stuck on this beautiful place, but there are theories and tales. And she rescued some children from the sea was one. She waved her lover off in his boat, never to see him again. She kept pigs here. She kept a house of ill repute here. Lots of local stories, probably none of them true.
Then the walk went on to Arnside and then to Storth, one of my favourite miles, and where I submitted my photos and story. On days 4 and 5, the walks continued along the north side of the Kent estuary to Grange-over-Sands and along to Cark. Just along the coast on the promenade in Grange-over-Sands, we met people passionate to restore the Grange Lido.
This mile's really special to me because I don't live very far away, I just live up the hill, and this is our kind of forever home where we're putting down roots and staying, and I've got very involved with the Lido. It's been closed since 1993, but it is a 1930s Lido, and it is so beautiful. There's a whole group of us dedicated to bringing it back. I honestly believe it will help to regenerate not just Grange, but the whole of Morecambe Bay.
Every 10 minutes it changes. People say, you don't have a telly? Well, why would you? We've got 2 walls, floor-to-ceiling glass, and every time you look out, something new is happening with the tide, with the birds, with the clouds, with whatever. It's such a dynamic environment to live in.
Our vision for Baylines and Beach of Dreams is to look at the gems along our broken foreshore, and that the fact there are so many people now being more aware of the coastline and their relationship to nature, and actually so many people doing projects with the future in mind, and this is a great example of that, and will inspire, as you've inspired many people before. I'm sure you're going to be inspiring more and more people every time they walk past it.
The last show we did was Longline, the Carnival Opera, which was done in 2006 in a circus tent over there by Ulverston. That focused a lot on the history of the bay, and I mean it's extraordinary history in terms of slavery, in terms of people could only cross the bay by
on
ship
foot.
or on foot
or in a horse and carriage. A wheel comes off or the horse goes lame, you hitch up your crinoline and you run for your life. So we are called offcomers because we've come in off the sands, not incomers, we're offcomers.
Right. Oh,
I love that language thing of how it relates to the environment.
The walk continued from Ulverston Canal Foot, hugging the coastline along to the causeway to Roe Island. On the final day of the walk, we crossed the bridge from Barrow.
South Walney is the only nature reserve in Cumbria where there's a colony of grey seals that are actually increasing. Being so close to the Irish Sea, it's really special. It's very elemental and whenever you step outside, you've got the sky and the ocean, and there's a lot of wild swimming that you can do. Best sunsets I've ever seen in my life. I mean, even in the wintertime, it's quite special as well, to be fair. It does get very stormy, but we had some amazing frost where the entire reserve was just white.
As somebody who was raised here, and I was raised here during the 1970s as well, which was just such a wonderful time to be up at the beach. That's what we did. We spent our holidays here. During the school, we would come up to the beach, bring picnics. I just feel very much part of the island, very deep rooted. All of my family's here. Ancestrally, my family are from Walney Island and from Barrow in Furness as well, so real part of the community. When I walked my mile, we started off at the ferry on Walney Island and we went down to the very tip, down to the South Walney Nature Reserve, and then all the way along Bigger Bank here and right the way down to Ernsey Bay. And I chose this section down by Ernsey Bay. We come down ourselves. It's just a nice way to end a busy day. And I really wanted to capture the kind of things that my children loved when they were little, and they did rock pooling here, and also the houses that run along the shoreline as well. They can look out on our coast every day. It's a place where people come to see the sunsets. It's a place where local photographers come down at the end of the night. That was my chosen area.
Back at the Walney Island Bridge, the walk, spanning 120 miles, came to an end.
Been such a privilege to do that project. It's not often we can do a project as Morecambe Bay Partnership that actually takes in the whole of Morecambe Bay, you know, from start to finish, and connect with all the places and all the communities en route. And for everyone who walked a mile for that project, thank you very much, and for sharing your photos and your stories. And if you want to explore everybody's stories in more detail, there's some wonderful digital collections that are available on the Ways Around the Bay website. If you go to the bottom of the homepage, I think there's a link to Beach of Dreams, and you'll find them all there. And I really would encourage you to have a read of some of those, some really moving and lovely stories that people have shared with us. And if you'd like to know more about the whole national initiative, they're hoping to do more in 2025. There's a website now, which I think is just beachofdreams.org. And you could get involved further down the line as well. So a great project to be part of. So I know we're running a little over because we were late starting. Thank you for sticking with us. And the last film we want to share, last but by no means least, is a documentary all about the Back on Our Map species project in partnership with the University of Cumbria. And I'm going to hand over to our nature officer, Anya, and she's going to tell you a little bit more about it before we play the film.
Thank you, Michelle, and thanks for inviting me along tonight. It's my absolute pleasure to present the end of project film for Back on Our Map, or BOOM as it's affectionately known, especially as we have lots of our BOOM volunteers with us tonight. So a huge thank you to them and their contribution to the project. It's nice to see you tonight, and I hope you enjoy the film. Now, I know lots of you will have come along to some sunset series which have featured some of our BOOM species already. But for those of you who don't know, the BOOM project has been a four-year chunk of work which is aimed to re-engage communities in South Cumbria with their natural environment by restoring the landscape and reintroducing and reinforcing a suite of locally threatened or extinct native species. That is varied from the hazel dormice, which is always everyone's favourite, but small blue butterflies, green-winged orchids, Duke of Burgundy butterfly, some fantastic plant species, maidenhair fern, Goldilocks aster, spike speedwell, as well as a feasibility study on bringing back pine marten to South Cumbria. So The project has been funded by the National Lottery Heritage Scheme, so £2 million project, but it's also been supported alongside a number of other public, private and charitable sector organisations. As Michelle said, it has been led by the University of Cumbria, but Morecambe Bay Partnership has been a key delivery partner. So we've been responsible for delivering community engagement and volunteering. Both myself and Michelle have worked on this project. So we're really happy to share this film with you. It's going to give a great overview of the different species, some of our challenges and successes of the project. But if that whets your appetite, then you can head to the Morecambe Bay Partnership website. We'll put a link in the chat for you, as we've done a best bits of boom blog, which goes into all the ecological outcomes of all the different species. And for those of you who are even more keen, we will be sharing our species legacy documents, which if you fancy some bedtime reading, they're kind of 30-40 pages, but if you really want to get into the details, then we'll be sharing those on the website as well. But I'm going to present the film now, and I'm sure we can answer any questions at the end.
Thanks, Anya.
Our main aim for Boom is to work with rare or threatened species and reintroduce or reinforce them into areas where they once were and where they've now been lost.
Boom came about really in response to the nature crisis that we were all facing, and there were a small number of individuals that came together within Cumbria and came up with this concept of bringing back species with people at its heart.
A big part of our role was recruiting a team of volunteers. They've been absolutely key to supporting our species officers in a lot of the species reintroduction work. We've been lucky to be joined by over 150 volunteers that have helped us with everything from feeding dormice grapes to planting trees, helping count orchids, and together they have contributed over 1,300 days of full-time work to our project. So we really couldn't have done the work without them. It's been really important to us to engage with people who don't often have a chance to access our outdoor places. So there's a key link between spending time outdoors in nature and it improving our mental health and well-being. So we've worked a lot with Haverrig Prison, Mind in Fairness, the mental health support charity in Barrow, and Beaumont College, which is for young people with learning disabilities. So we've been working with the prison throughout the whole of the Boom project. They're one of the key communities that we've been working with. We've worked with about a group of 20 prisoners, and we have led them through both the John Muir Award and Level 1 horticulture. So we've been teaching them a lot about different boom species, but one of the species we have focused on is aspen.
Up to 4,000 of these aspen trees have now been planted through the Boom project. And the prisoners at HMP Haverrig have had a really important part to play in it.
It's quite unusual in the fact that it needs both a male and female aspen tree close by to be able to pollinate. Unfortunately, there's now not enough male and female trees to be able to start and continue new aspen growing around Cumbria. So the prisoners have worked with us for over the past 2 years and supported us to both grow the species here at the prison and follow that whole process through to then planting them out around Cumbria. They've been absolutely invaluable to the day-to-day watering and looking after of the trees here on the site, as well as giving us the manpower to then be able to go out and plant those species across a wide area in Cumbria.
Everything that Jo and her team have done here has absolutely impacted all of the men who've been involved. So we had visitors from outside, experts in their field, visiting artists who've come in and treat them like normal human beings, which is absolutely invaluable to somebody who we are trying to go back outside and live a fruitful life.
When we were doing the art with the men, we were really keen to say there aren't any mistakes. A lot of them hadn't picked up pens and pencils since they've been at school, and definitely a lot of them hadn't done any artwork. And when they actually came to the gallery, we did a trip, they came and actually saw their art up on the walls and realised that 500-600 other people had come to see their artwork as well. That was a huge confidence boost for them, and they've talked about it every other session since.
They've got an understanding of how to grow and nurture things along and why looking after things are so important, which helps with their understanding of basically how to live decent lives. And if we can rehabilitate, then you're going to prevent more victims because you've changed their lives. Absolutely massive for the mental health and well-being of the guys that we work with. Having that positive mental health effect can only help towards a positive rehabilitation.
Fellshire Moss is a lowland raised bog which is owned and managed by Cumbria Wildlife Trust. It's about 350 hectares in size, and they've basically re-wetted it so that we've got all these like bog pools that you can see me squelching in here. It's a really, really important habitat because it's a peatland habitat. Or the peatlands in the world store more carbon than all the woodlands in the world, and it's home to lots and lots of fabulous species. So obviously the great sundew and oblong-leaf sundew because of boom. So these species are particularly important because they are actually carnivorous. So they are the UK's answer to the Venus flytrap, and their role is they catch flies on their leaves, and they will digest the flies, and this will add nutrients to the bog that can then be used for the plants themselves, but also the other plants around them. In here we've got 20 oblong-leaf sundews, and basically it's just a thin layer of peat, and we've just planted the sundews on it, and the volunteers have been then taking these home, and they've just looked after them over winter. So they've been able to plant them on, look after them over winter, and then we're going to plant them out with the volunteers as well. We've got a Bog in the Box WhatsApp group, and seeing people with text and be like, oh look, mine's caught a fly, and oh, I think mine's about to come into flower and stuff, that people get more engaged. It's been a really accessible way to get people interested in bogs, because as you can see, like, it's not the easiest habitat to walk across, and it is actually a really sensitive habitat as well.
So we've been working with the small blue butterfly. It's the nation's smallest butterfly, about the size of a 5p piece, and it's quite rare. There's a really great population of them on the Barrow slag banks. So we're really fortunate to have a really great, enthusiastic group of volunteers local to Barrow to help us with mark and recapture studies. So we're working to create a meta-population of the small blue, meaning that this will be lots of little populations all interconnected through food source and through habitat. For the past 3 years, we've been working to do habitat improvements at a site called Barrow, which is run by the RSPB. For this, we've had to plant kidney vetch, which is the one and only food plant for the small blue caterpillar. This year, we actually translocated 64 small blue butterflies to Barrow. Not only have they spread across the site, but we're seeing them breeding already, and we've seen eggs being laid on kidney vetch, and we've seen caterpillars, and we've actually seen new adult butterflies, which was really unprecedented because we weren't expecting to see any second generation until next year.
The Duke of Burgundy butterfly was another species that we worked on, and it's declined precipitously since 1970, and is now restricted to chalk grassland and woodland rides at just a few locations around Morecambe Bay and in the Rusland Valley. What we were hoping to do was captive breed these butterflies to produce a population to create new colonies in the wider landscape. And this was successful, but not without challenge, because butterflies are real sort of boom and bust insects. They have good years and they have bad years. During the term of the Boom project, there simply weren't enough butterflies to collect and captive breed to create those satellite colonies. But that said, we worked with volunteers and very closely with butterfly conservation and learned a great deal in terms of methods and best practice when it comes to captive breeding of butterflies. My friend and colleague Ellie Kent has done remarkable work with her volunteers and in conjunction with the People's Trust for Endangered Species to recover hazel dormice.
We've actually seen a 50% decline in the hazel dormouse population across Britain since the 1970s, when they used to be abundant all the way up to the Scottish border.
We wanted to reintroduce the hazel dormouse into these habitats that has abundant food, that has this perfect three-dimensional habitat that they love. Since 2021, we've done 2 hazel dormouse reintroductions into Arnside and Silverdale AUMB. These dormice are actually captive bred. They're then brought up to be put into soft release cages. We have a really great group of 24 volunteers who came and fed them every day in their cages, and then on the 10th day we released them into the wild. We've seen lots of breeding take place and them spreading through the landscape. We now have about 8 volunteers that actually have a dormouse handling licence, and many more that actually want to get one, which is a really great legacy for us.
So the maidenhair fern is a rare plant that grows in crevices on limestone bluffs and rocks, and again it's very rare in South Cumbria. We had great difficulty accessing the sites where it still occurs, like Meathop Sea Wall, which we could only access after COVID, and it grows very, very slowly. So this is a perfect example of where the term of the Boom project is simply not long enough, and it will require more work longer term, but actually it's been propagated successfully and returned to at least 2 or 3 locations through the project.
It's a really special site for Boom because we have quite a lot of species that we work on here, mainly the spike speedwell, Goldilocks aster and the green-winged orchid. These 3 species are important because they're really rare in Cumbria. In fact, Goldilocks aster was extinct in Cumbria before we planted it back out on Humphrey Head, just at the top here. We actually have been using the spike speedwell here as a donor source for other sites in Cumbria. So the spike speedwell seed from here is fantastic because it grows really, really big and it grows really fast compared to other sites that spike speedwell exists in Cumbria. They're really, really good inhabitants of limestone grasslands and cliff edges. We've learnt so much, and it's given the volunteers an opportunity to learn new skills. It's been tricky because we've had a lot of complications such as COVID. It's been a journey, but we're finally getting there, and we have started planting out spike speedwell in areas in the AUMB, so in Jack Scout and Arnside and Silverdale.
So everyone loves an orchid, and the green-winged orchid is no exception. It's absolutely spectacular. And there are still a few colonies of green-winged orchids in the Arnside and Silverdale AONB and 1 or 2 other spots around Cumbria, but it's rare and it needed help. And the wonderful thing about this element of the Boom project was the collaboration with cutting-edge scientists and researchers at Kew Gardens. Orchids require particular mycorrhizal fungi to germinate and to thrive. Kew Gardens did the research to identify the particular fungi that benefited the propagation of green-winged orchids and presented us with 1,000 little tiny plants. Those plants have been planted out into the landscape with mixed results, and there has been a lot of learning for the Boom project officers as a result. But fundamentally, we now have the skills and the know-how to actually propagate those plants ourselves. The story of the pine marten is surely one of resilience in the face of persecution, but hunting records document the steady decline of the species to a low point at the end of the 19th century. The last confirmed record of a pine marten in Cumbria was from Grisdale Forest in 2010. So why are we studying the feasibility of reintroducing this species? Well, a Cumbrian population could help to link those in southern Scotland with the reintroduced populations in Wales and the Forest of Dean. Recent evidence suggests that where pine martens exist with red and grey squirrels, they reduce non-native grey squirrel numbers and allow the reds to thrive. Over the last year, based on some really promising results from all of the field work and the community engagement and the mapping and modelling, we decided to progress from the feasibility element to re-establish a small viable population in Cumbria. So the future of the Pine Marten project in South Cumbria is uncertain, We applied for a licence in May this year to the statutory authorities north of the border, and we're unsure at this point whether that will be granted or not. But I have to say we're very proud of the work that's been done, the feasibility work and the implementation work with our partners over the last 3 or 4 years. Perhaps what I'm most proud about are the bridges that we've built with farmers and landowners and gamekeepers who traditionally are not well thought of by the conservation sector, but actually who've supported this project more than most.
So it's not just nature that's benefited. The communities we've worked with have really gained so much from this whole process in terms of making friends, getting jobs, improving the well-being, having, I suppose, a focus on to do something a bit different with their lives. Often students come out of the university and they have the academic knowledge, but they don't have the practical applied experience. The students have been involved in learning about species, having practical tasks, working with communities, and that's led to those students to actual real jobs. So we've had 100% success, which is amazing. So I'd just like to thank all the partners and the volunteers and the landowners and everybody who's worked with us, who's actually made it happen. We couldn't have done it without them. So as Boom finishes, we have great pride in what we're going to leave behind. These creatures and plants that we've brought back that will continue to thrive into the future, and that the partnership will continue to support that. And that legacy for us, we see is a job well done.
So there we go. What a amazing feast for the senses that was, and how amazing is Morecambe Bay with all those amazing animals and plants and beautiful landscapes. So that's the snapshot we've given you of this year's programmes at Morecambe Bay Partnership, and it's just been a joy to work with you all on these different initiatives and try to connect as many people as we can to the nature and the heritage and the stories of this special place, and hopefully more of that to follow in 2024. I'll just hand you back now to Sarah. Thank you for listening and for persevering.
Thanks, Michelle. Yeah, what a lovely pre-Christmas treat. It was really, really brilliant. And I know that all of the team that are on the call from Morecambe Bay Partnership are really very proud of everything that we've achieved as a charity this year. So well done, everybody. And thank you to everyone who's stuck with us. I think that the tech wasn't as bad as we possibly anticipated it was going to be. So it was a little bit jumpy at times, but the audio was great. So so hopefully you all enjoyed it. I think all it remains for me to say is wishing everybody a very peaceful and a healthy and restful festive period, whatever you're doing. And we really look forward to seeing you all in January for the next Sunset series. Details on our website as usual. And thank you ever so much for your support and encouragement for our little charity in 2023. We'll see you next year.